Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, we are here in December of 2025. Um, I hope everyone had an amazing holiday weekend with family and friends and ate some really good food. We're here today with Chris Adair, and he's going to be covering soils and conservation on farm at the Purdue Student Farm in Lafayette. And yeah, we'll just have you kind of cover all of the different topics that you wanted to and have you start sharing. So please, yeah, everyone feel free to post questions on the group chat. And we'll have Chris answer them as they come up.
There we go. We're unmuted. Should I begin?
Yeah, kick it off.
Okay, sweet. Like Tammy said, please ask questions. There is potentially, I don't know, plenty of questions that can be asked. But yeah, I'm Chris Adair. I'm the Purdue Student Farm Manager. I have been here now for it will be just shy of 10 years, which is a bit of a crazy thing to be saying. But yeah, we've been here for a little while now. The new farm site, so what you see in the photo, is the quote new farm site. We started in 2010 on the Maxwell tract, which is across the street from the horticulture park. It is currently being turned into housing right now. So we have been at this site for now longer than we were at the old site. So should probably don't probably don't have to talk too much about the old site anymore. But this site is about 3.5 acres. We grow on about just over 2 acres, so that's six outdoor blocks that we rotate through and four large 96 by 30 foot high tunnels that we rotate through. And you will see that we do have a fifth small tunnel, but that is not within the rotation, and we have a couple rows of grapes under that. Without really, we haven't done too much production in that zone much. But in general, I'm gonna kind of talk about the soils at the farm, kind of what we do at the farm to kind of destroy the soils, what we do to potentially help build the soils, and then also talk about kind of some of the ecology at the farm and some of the things that we're doing to, I guess, help create an environment for plants and animals to live in, while we can also produce food in and around as well. So yeah, we'll start. Um, the first couple slides are just some photos of our production. So the first slide here, these are photos of all four of our high tunnels. In in the tunnels, we do lots of different production, but two of the tunnels are really based around tomatoes and pepper production. The other two tunnels are kind of our off tunnels. And then this is some of our field production. Lots of nice straight lines, actually, which can be difficult at times, but we're very, as you can see, there's still, a decent amount of bare soil. We definitely do some tillage, if not quite a bit of tillage at the farm. Um, but, but yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a bit of a view of what some of our blocks and things look like production wise. The next slide. So this is the fun soil map that I really like to look at, or not necessarily look at all the time, but pull out and show folks. But we sit on two different soil complexes, the Mahalesville Treaty Complex and the Starks Fincastle Complex. Um, Both of them are generally pretty heavy soils. The Mahalesville Treaty Complex is extremely heavy. And if you look at the photo, We actually grow mostly in that Mahalesville Treaty Complex. So we're growing on very clay heavy soils. There are definitely areas on the farm where you get down 6, 12 inches and you run into yellow clay. There's certain areas even where it's even closer to the soil surface, but there are obviously some areas, especially in the southeast corner of the farm, where that's not nearly the issue that not nearly an issue for us. So it's been I don't know. I prefer it over sandy soils, I would say. The good thing that we have is we have good soil good water retention in the soil. But one of the major issues that has kind of seemingly causes we do have a little bit more disease buildup at times on the farm. So when we moved to the site, we wanted to look at what soils we're on, what we're growing in, and we also wanted to kind of figure out exactly where all the water flow is moving at the farm because it's important to know where the water is moving. And if you look in the very southwest corner of the plot, I don't know if you can actually see my mouse or not, but we have a what's classified as an emergent wetland at the site, and it holds water about 30% of the year now, maybe a little bit less. And when it holds water, I mean, it's probably 2 to 3 inches deep for the most part. Sometimes in the spring, it can get a little deeper. Earlier in our time at the site, we had a lot more standing water in there, and we did actually have a couple seasons where there were a lot of tadpoles and things that came out of there, which was cool. Sorry, my students are trying to talk to me. So this is kind of a slide to show where water is moving on the farm. You can see the red line. That's kind of a ridge around the farm where water moves one way or the other way off of the farm. It kind of gets muddied around in the southeast corner of the farm. Kind of some of that water does go to the north side of the farm. Some of it goes to the west and goes to that wetland area. But in general, most of our water is moving north, and it can move pretty quickly. So we do have a bunch of grass pathways between our plots. And a lot of that is obviously so we can move around the farm without tearing up a lot of things, but they're also kind of in places where a lot of that water is being forced to move. So when we moved to the site, we had to put these high tunnels up, and running them east-west is your preferred direction. And as you can tell, in general, that is pretty much putting them right across the movement of water. So, in general, what we tried to do to kind of eliminate some of these issues that might be caused from water getting on the tunnels and then pooling around the tunnels, slash all the water moving from the south part of the farm to the north part of the farm, kind of pooling up against them, or even, causing water to run through the tunnels. We have trenched on either side of all of the tunnels to make sure water has a place to go away from the tunnels, and not, sit in the tunnels. That has worked for quite a while, but as things grow and the grass continues to grow and that thatch continues to build up, we are starting to run into some issues around the edges where we now have a lip to a certain extent, and so some of that water even gets trapped inside the tunnel to a certain extent now. So it's it's a bit of a continuing battle that we're having to fight. Um, Currently, all those locations are just grass and that we just mow them. But we do have I'll talk about this a little bit later, but we do have thoughts on putting native grasses and vegetation in those areas, for one, to soak up water, two, to be a place for different pests or sorry, different predatory insects and potentially pests to, hang out and be around. So just quickly wanted to talk a little bit about the wetland. So this is a photo of the wetland from about 4 seasons ago. So you can see that you can kind of see in the middle, there's some bare ground, and they kind of run in lines east to west. And what that is showing is that is showing the fact that so before we moved to the farm site, this was conventionally farmed for 60 plus years, and the farmer just drove straight through this wetland. And you can, and what you see there are the tire tracks from either the tractor or from, the disc that he's using. So you can kind of tell that it's maybe not super filled in, not super filled up, but plant-wise, we did sit down and we worked with Niches Land Trust for the first probably 3 or 4 years we were at the farm site. We would take classes out to their properties. We would do some seed collection, which was a really great time for the students and for us to kind of get off farm and have a different type of I guess a harvesting activity. So collected a bunch of seeds. We vernalized all those seeds and started growing out transplants to put into the ground at the wetlands. So we've done some restoration work with transplant plugs, and all of those seeds and all of the have been collected from this county or the surrounding county properties. So in general, it's we're I don't know, we're trying to keep, I guess, a localized genetic ecotype of those species, and we're not necessarily purchasing seed from uh, you know grower or folks even within the state or surrounding states that sell native plants and things like that. We're trying to collect those from a very, very local area. Also, if there are questions in the chat, I can't really see them.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Just one question was
Yeah.
how long are your bed lengths, but you're not quite there yet. So you're good.
Honestly, I won't be going back to that stuff
Oh,
necessary. I mean, I will, but not entirely. Our bed lengths are 100 foot long. Our blocks are 68 by 100 feet. And that's a relatively arbitrary size, but is mostly just because of two of our blocks in the rotation they were a little bit smaller, so we had to base everything off of that size.
right on. Thanks.
This is an overhead shot of the wetland from this season. So, and these photos were also taken around the same time. They're within the same month of each other. So you can see there's a lot more vegetation growth within the wetland this year. Granted, it was it was reasonably wet this spring for us. It probably would have been, we probably could have used a little bit more rain, but in general, last year was very dry. The wetland did its thing, but it was reasonably sparse at times. But this year it was pretty large and really filled in. Our single willow tree in the middle is getting very large now and getting very, very big. And I keep mowing a bunch around it to hopefully it doesn't expand too much. That's our goal at least. And I know I said we put a lot of prairie plants in, so a lot of it is forbs, or not forbs. Oh no, sedges. We put a lot of different sedges in, but we did put some things like swamp milkweed and blue vervain and bone set, things like that, into the wetland. And some blue flag irises that came from Mulvey Pond, if you've ever been to it, which is a great place to go hike at. Um, so so yeah, we're very honestly, I got into plants because of restoration work, and that's really what I kind of got into, or why I got into things. And then I happened to just get into farming while here at the university. So this is really probably one of my favorite things about the farm, actually, is the wetland and really kind of working and doing things in the wetland. It's really great. So how do we treat our soils? In general, we till the heck out of them. So not super great. We have been trying to work on ways to limit tillage. But currently we still till very often and very regularly. But in general, we are starting to begin to try to eliminate some tilling. Some ways we have gone about making it better on our soils, because as I said earlier, our soils are extremely clay heavy. And so creating a hard pan is not hard at all. You look at it sideways just a little bit and it creates a hard pan. So um, we have a smaller tractor that we used to use, and we had a rototiller that we used that we tilled a lot with prior to about 2 seasons ago. But there's a certain period of time where I was like, we have two walk behind BCS tractors and we have two Harrows that fit on those tractors. So I was like, well, maybe we can just get it done, everything done with these Harrows. And so the last 2 years we've actually completely phased out using our rototiller and using our large tractor as a tillage implement or used for with the tiller on it. So we've we've kind of done better, even though we're still tilling just as much. But using a harrow is better than a rototiller. I will say with our soils though, we're still creating hard pans with those harrows. I found it's not too difficult to do that. And sometimes since our soils stay and hold on to that moisture for so long, there are times where, I'm tilling when I know I shouldn't be tilling, but I need to make beds so I can get onions in the ground kind of thing. So, in general, moving to the Harrow, moving to the BCS has definitely helped. But it's definitely still not, we're still tearing up that soil and still beating it up a little bit. Um, so we do have our field rotations. We have a brassica block, an allium block, a solanaceous block, a second brassica block. That is 3 years apart. So the rotation is basically based on keeping those brassica blocks separated from each other. And then we have a full potato block and then a full season cover crop block where we will put different cover crops in the ground. Um, so what, in general, we use a lot of our ground, but our goal is to limit overuse of the ground. So, our brassica blocks, the first block that we will fill up, we might come back in with some secondary crops later in the season, but not always. A lot of times those secondary crops or the second and third iterations of crops will go in our second brassica block. So we're trying to not overuse those pieces of land. And then having that full season cover crop block has allowed us to go through different sets of crops. When we got to the farm site, we were growing a lot of sorghum Sudan grass, lots of clovers, lots of large biomass producing crops, because we really wanted to get organic matter into the soil. We really wanted to try to soften that soil up a little bit more. And it has definitely helped over the years and it's got better, but you can only go so far, you can only fix so many things with that. So we did transition the last few years. We've been doing a lot more buckwheat cover crops because we've been more so trying to look at weed suppression, and the buckwheat has done a really good job of suppressing weeds in general, except for thistle. It tends to still allow thistle to grow in and amongst the canopy, but you can only do so much. So and then now we're going to transition next season. We're going to start doing something different. We're going to start growing sun hemp as a full season cover, and with the hope that we will be able to roller crimp that in the fall, let it kind of break down a little bit over the summer or over the winter, and then we will stale seed bed it, which I will talk about shortly. Um, and then we will transplant directly into it, which hopefully eliminates an entire tillage step for us on at the farm site. So, kind of I guess our transition now into the future, our goal is to um, really start to find ways that we can eliminate times where we're tilling. And I think we can do that a lot using the stale seed bedding techniques because it's been really, really nice. So we'll talk a little about the stale seed bedding now. You can see down at the bottom part of the photo, in the bottom right, you see a bunch of clear plastic with some strips of black plastic over the top of them. So we've been working with Dr. Steve Myers out of the horticulture department, and he does weed research and specialty cropping systems. And the system here that he's been helping us work with is onion production. And we're basically comparing different treatments, different hand tools, and comparing the speed of weeding and how long it takes to weed onions, because weeding onions is a very big deal and a really big pain at times. And so if you get behind, you're kind of in trouble. So anything that we can do that helps, uh, you know, make that issue easier is important for us. So one thing we've been working with is a stale seed bedding. Granted, we do till these beds up, make the beds, and then put the plastic over them. So we're not eliminating a tillage step here. But we're probably eliminating, to be fair, with the onions, I might actually end up tilling a couple times before we put plants in the ground. So we probably are eliminating at least one tillage step when it comes to putting the plastic down. Why we're using the clear plastic is normally stale seed bedding, you would use a black plastic. So on the left-hand side of the screen there, you can see there's a large sheet, black plastic side up. Um, so when you're stale seed bedding, you're effectively covering the soil, eliminating all sunlight to that soil surface, but you're still heating up that soil and you're causing seeds to germinate, weed seeds to germinate in that upper half inch, maybe inch of soil. And then when they germinate, they run out of light, they run out of energy in the seed, and they die off. And so what that can mean is you can effectively kill off a decent amount of weed seeds in that surface, and then when you pull that plastic back, if as long as you don't disturb that surface, so if you don't go in and like till, um, you can get a relatively long weed-free period at the start of your season of those crops in the ground. The one thing we're running into that's an issue though with the onions is we're trying to do it so early in the year that even with the black plastic, we weren't getting the temperatures that we needed to encourage that germination. So we were like, well, let's maybe if we throw some clear plastic down, that will heat it up better, and that will get more seeds to germinate. And it worked really, really well, actually. So we were even getting grasses to germinate in late February under clear plastic out in the field. And then throwing black plastic over the top of that, which killed everything. And then once we remove all of that, we then transplant all of our onions straight into the ground. And then that allowed us to really, I mean, it really, really saves us a lot of time when it comes to weeding those crops. So stale seed bedding has been not only awesome for knocking back some of the weed pressure, but it's also allowed us to eliminate some of our tillage that we do at the farm. So actually, I want to go back and talk about the large black sheet here. So the to the west side there, or to the left, that sheet was where we put our early season brassicas. So we had that sheet down for about 2 weeks. Usually 3 weeks is considered your limit on how long you want to keep that fabric or how long you want to keep that plastic down, because we do not know exactly what it's doing to the microbial community in the soils. Obviously, we can probably, think of some poor things that it's doing to them, but in general, you're not sure, so you don't want to keep it on too long. So this was down for about 2.5 weeks, and then we pulled it off and we just transplanted all of our crops straight into the ground there, and it was actually really fantastic, and it completely eliminated a tillage for that block this year. So we did not till that block at all this season. So for me, that's a huge win and something that I want to try to keep continuing. And if we can manage to do things like that, especially for transplanting, I think is something that we would really like to do moving forward. Um, Continued stale seed bedding stuff. So some more work that we did this year on potatoes. So yes, we're tilling. And then we're transplanting our potatoes in the ground. But what we're doing is we trialed this out a couple years ago. It did encourage potatoes to start growing a little bit, maybe a little bit sooner, which is fine. But we wanted to see if we could get still a weed treatment done before those potatoes started growing too much under that plastic. Um, the one thing we noticed with the black side plastic up though is that that plastic was getting really hot, and so the grow points on the potatoes sitting up against that plastic were getting roasted and potentially dying. But that didn't kill the whole plant; it just made it bush out a lot more. So the research project this year, we tried black plastic up, white plastic up, and then bare soil. Um, we actually found that harvest-wise, there was no difference in any of the treatments. So even the ones that did get the original grow point, uh, uh, ooh, if the original grow point was killed, it did not seem to hinder the production for the season. But we still found that with the black and the white plastic, we got pretty decent weed control for that first few weeks, if not month of the season. And honestly, with the hilling and stuff, it really helped eliminate some of the weed, like the major weeding that we'd have to do full season. So stale seed bedding has been really phenomenal for us, not only for the weed suppression that it's mostly meant to be, a lot of what it's talked about and used for, but it's also allowed us to eliminate some of our tillage that we've done at the farm. All right, so I want to talk about the ecology of the farm a little bit, and just generally what is going on at the farm and how we're trying to not eliminate all of our beneficial insects at the farm. Because one of the biggest things that I don't want to do is we don't want to have a sterile environment at the farm, because we do want pests around the farm. We just don't want too many pests at the farm. So, if there's a little bit of aphids here or there, that's not too big of an issue as long as it doesn't become something that is actively, covering and making us have to deal with bad fruits or bad plants and things like that. Because if we eliminate all of our pests, then our predatory insect population is likely to crash, and then that will create an even larger opening for those pests to come back into and really fill that void. And then it'll take even longer for those predatory insect populations to build back up. So in general, one of the big things we do at the farm is just not mow a whole lot. Like we do mow, but in general, we try not to mow too much. And so allowing a lot of our clovers in the grassways to flower and grow well provides a lot of pollen and nectar for not only pollinators but also for your predatory insects. We've begun trying to move things closer to like nectaries uh, to production. So we've been using sweet alyssum and putting that within high tunnels, within fields, maybe not in large quantities or good enough quantities just yet, but something that we've started to play around with by putting in those plants here and there. Next year, I think in our tomato tunnel, we're gonna be putting effectively sweet alyssum as a ground cover between our rows or within our rows. We'll see how well that works because competition with tomato plants and things like that. It's a little bit of a concern that there could be some interesting interactions there, but I don't think it'll be too much of a problem. But the nice thing with the sweet alyssum is once it starts flowering, it literally will flower the rest of the season, and it pumps out flowers. And so it provides tons of nectar, tons of pollen uh, for your beneficial insects to feed on and eat, and keep them all primed and ready to run around and eat your pest insects. And laying eggs and things like that. So we see lots of lacewings, we see lots of um, lady beetles around the farm, a lot of different things at the farm, which is really great. In the bottom right hand corner, you'll see that's a photo of a bunch of common milkweed in the corner of one of our high tunnels. So one thing that we've really noticed, so I really like milkweed, so I just kind of let it go wherever it can, as long as it's not within our production areas. We really just kind of let it have at it. So this little corner in the high tunnel, you can see that there's some production that kind of runs right up next to it, and we will weed any of the things that pop up there, but we'll leave the rest of the milkweed in that corner. Um, the one thing that the milkweed does though is it does have a milkweed aphid that only attacks the milkweed. And so that can somewhat, so this is very anecdotal, very much like, potentially saying things that like pie in the sky, like, oh, this can definitely work. But effectively, it looks to us or to me that having the common milkweed around has those aphids. They can act as effective banker plants that predatory insects can, do their life cycle on. They've got aphids to feed on, and then they will also potentially move around the high tunnel. So if we do have other aphids that infiltrate in the high tunnel, they can attack those. So something that we're going to do going into next year is we're going to grow out some milkweed plugs, and we're going to actually plant milkweed in all the corners of all of our high tunnels. Might be making a problem for myself in the future, but we will we'll deal with that if we have to. One big thing that occurred a few years ago that we really, really appreciated. The university is going through a big, make campus green thing. So they're trying to plant like thousands of trees in a span of like a few years, handful of years. So they came to us a couple years ago and were like, hey, um, we like, do you want a bunch of trees to plant? And it's like, yeah, that would be awesome because we would really like to not only have a wind buffer on the west side of the farm, but we would also like to have a place that, could be a quote unquote edible garden or something that, we can pull food off of that the students could play around with and, do things like that. So they worked with us to kind of figure out all the plants that we wanted to put in. So we put in a bunch of different things. So we put in service berries, we put in pawpaws. Granted, all of the pawpaws have died, but some of them are starting to shoot out, putting shoots out the bottom. So we're doing great now. We put in they put in some hazelnuts. They put in some different red buds that are I don't know they're not of red bud that I'm used to looking at. They're more of a bush than necessarily a smaller tree. But I know red buds are kind of bushy to trees anyway. Um, they put in some pecans. They put in some persimmons. We've got different mulberries. We have some choke cherries. Um, so we got a bunch of different trees and shrubs that are good size, but also not too big. But some of the things we put up against the tree line as well. And the hope with all of that is to kind of, I guess, wrap the western side of the farm in trees and shrubs, pulling that kind of the tree line that is north of us, pulling kind of something down south and to connect into the wetland a little bit to provide, I don't know, kind of I guess a tree corridor to a certain extent. But in general, it's been really good. We've actually lost almost no plants. I said we lost all those pawpaws, but that's about it. I think we've lost a total of two other trees outside of that. So actually done quite well with not losing too many. The bottom right corner is a flowering button bush. We actually did not put any button bushes in with this planting, but we put button bushes into the wetland probably the second year I was out here. And they just started flowering probably about 3 years ago, and they're really getting big now. They're probably about 6, 7 foot tall now, which has been really great. So in general, we're trying to just, provide new spaces for plants and animals to live in and around at the farm. One of the things that I really hope that we see is increased bird populations, specifically insectivores. So like bluebirds, swallows, things like that. We've actually had a pair of kingbirds out here the last few years, which has been really cool to see. I've been really happy to see, even though they may eat your bees a little bit. That's a risk I'm willing to take. And then we do have a pair of red-shouldered hawks that live and try to nest in the woods north of us. They didn't seem to nest this year, but the prior season they actually nested and raised out three babies, which was super cool to see. Um, and those hawks are around. They hang out on our high tunnels. They hang out on the building. They love it when I get the flail mower out and start scaring up rabbits. They're really about that actually. So in general, we're just trying to create, increase the biodiversity around the farm because hopefully that fills niches and creates spaces that as pests move in and around the farm, there's less and less space for them to actually operate. And these are just a number of photos from the farm from just this past season of different things that we've seen. Um, we do have an iNaturalist page for the student farm, and it's been running for about a year and a half now. And we have well over 300 observations with, I think, something like 150 plus species. Um, but some of the things that we saw this year that were in crazy quantities and some new stuff that we saw this year. So, um, the top second from the top left, there's a little frog. I put it in iNaturalist as a Western chorus frog. I have now been told maybe it's a boreal chorus frog, but I don't know how to tell the difference, to be perfectly honest. But that's something that I found that was relatively close to the wetland. And then the photo next to it, one of our interns from this year, Jane, is holding a pretty large, what I'm pretty sure is a red-eared slider. But we have definitely found nests at the farm for turtle eggs at the farm site. Last year we found uh, two eggs while we were pulling up potatoes, and they both hatched out for us. So we kept them, put them in a bucket with a bunch of soil, and then they both hatched out, and we released them back into the woods. Um, Top right is a tree frog. We have tons and tons of tree frogs around the farm. The wetland is very helpful with that. And we find them all over the place. They do really like to be in our trash cans, though. Love being in the trash cans. Um, and then we, in the very middle, are tussock moths, caterpillars. We had hundreds of tussock moths this year. We've seen them in the past, but this year I don't know why, but we had an insane amount of them, which is really cool to see. They get on the milkweed, don't really bother us in any way, but just really cool to have. And then just below that are the uh, oh, good Lord, monarch caterpillars. And we've had monarchs every season, but this year was an exceptional year. We probably had in the mid 30s of caterpillars found. Really, really, really good. I really, really like to see that a lot, and have been really, really happy with that. And then the very bottom right is something new this year that I haven't seen at the farm at all, and it's a vining milkweed, which I don't know how I didn't really know about this, but I was looking in the wetland and I was like, well, this looks really weird. Like I thought it was at first I thought it was a morning glory. But then I saw the flowers and I was like, this is obviously not a morning glory. But I don't know where it's come from, but it has showed up at the farm site. And to be fair, it may have already been around the farm site. It's just with not mowing as much, leaving kind of the northern tree line alone, other than ripping out invasives, it might have, allowed it a space to grow and kind of be there. And then the last thing, the bottom left, are two different butterflies. Obviously, one of them is a monarch, but the very left one is actually a viceroy, and this is the first year I've ever seen a viceroy at the farm. Doesn't mean we haven't had them, of course. It's just the first time I've ever actually seen a viceroy at the farm. So I was actually super excited that I found it. And to be fair, it was trapped inside one of the high tunnels, so I had to let it go. That's actually why you'll see my hand in numerous photos. Is what I'm doing is I'm actually pulling these butterflies out of the high tunnels because they get stuck in the corners because they don't realize they're in plastic. Um, let's see if this link works. Um, did that probably is that did it go to the web page? Or is it, do you still see my,
I
We still,
still see your slideshow.
okay.
if you stop sharing and then reshare the link screen, that's probably the best.
There you go.
I just wanted to share this is our iNaturalist webpage. So, um, if you're ever out at the farm, you're more than welcome to add things to it. But if you just, it's always fun to kind of look and see what has been found, and what we have seen this year, or last year. So it's a bunch of fun to look at, and kind of a nice way to keep track of what you've seen at the farm and what year you've seen it at the farm, and if it's repeating every season as well. So, but yeah, are there any questions?
We've got a lot of people making great comments and helping each other out. I think one question from Ellie is, have you considered adding straw or hay mulch to some of your transplanted crops for weed suppression or stale seed bedding prior?
Um, so so no, we haven't really looked at adding straw or any material like that. We use a lot of stirrup hose and wheel hose to do weeding. That material can kind of get in the way of actually weeding, and then you just have things growing through it. Um, Also, there can be a little bit of issue with putting pure carbon material onto your soil surface and it breaking down and kind of soaking up some of the nitrogen that's available, and it can kind of set back some of the production on your crops. So, um, it's not anything like super bad, but like if potentially you have a tomato crop, it could set back like ripening and available tomatoes by up to a week or two. Um, Not necessarily an issue, but it's something that we also don't have really a good source or available source for things like straw. And we would potentially need to use quite a bit of it. So no, we have not. That's partially why I'm trying to do the sun hemp. So we effectively create our like soil mat to it, or our our a mat that we can cover the soil with, that then we can kind of transplant through the following season, while it's still breaking down, and it's already maybe breaking down, and it's even releasing those nutrients into the soil. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and then we have another question from Rose River Farm. Are you bringing in any organic matter sources from the school itself or the community for the purposes of building better soil, or the clay you mentioned, like food scraps, compost leaves, grass clippings, using cover crops, using chop and drop, which you mentioned some of them, but anything else?
So we have purchased and used compost in the high tunnels. When we initially got the high tunnels, we put about 4 inches of compost across the board in the tunnels, which was a lot. It really did help with the friability of the soil, so it's reasonably soft in there, especially compared to outside. Um, but outside, in general, we're trying to rely on cover cropping and just in general. Less additives like that, just because one, they're expensive and we don't really have the money to spend on that. Two, we do have some compost that we produce at the farm from our waste. It's not a lot. And One of our issues is that we've tested it and we have root knot nematodes in it, and so it's a bit of a concern for dosing our high tunnels with a bunch of root knot nematodes that we already know have root knot nematodes in them, which has been a bit of an issue, which actually I didn't talk about. I meant to, but in our high tunnels, we actually currently do not cover crop in them because of our root knot nematode issue. We're really trying to honestly keep any living plant out of those tunnels for the entire winter and spring before we put tomatoes and peppers in the ground, because we've had some a few years ago, we had a really significant issue with root knot nematodes attacking our tomatoes, and it really killed probably the last. almost month of production. This year, so we pull all of our root balls every year on everything because we want to really see what's going on. Um, we didn't see any issues above ground, but when we started pulling root balls of the tomatoes this year, there were probably 70 plants at least that had symptoms of root knot nematodes. We I don't know what that means for us, honestly. I just hope it doesn't mean bad things. One thing we did find this year that we haven't found in the past is we found one pepper plant that had galls on it, and that's a bit of a concern for us because we have not seen that in the past. And this is the first year we've seen that, which means we might actually have like three species of root knot nematode in the high tunnels now, which is awesome. Um, so so yeah. So no, we do not use a lot of offsite compost or anything for that in the fields. What we do use for fertility is a sustain product, specifically an 824 or the 374 or 384. I can't remember exactly what the number is, but they're all turkey litter based, and that's what we use for fertility in the field, for side dressing and for uh, put banding in the soil before we transplant and things like that.
Yeah, lots of room to continue experimenting, sounds like, and trying things out. And then can you clarify how like you rotate your cover crop blocks throughout the whole farm annually?
Um, so I would all right, can you repeat that again real quick?
Yeah, no problem. Ellie was just saying so cereal rye is crimped and then tarped.
Yes.
Um, and so she was just saying like that's a good option before transplanting long season crops. And then I think
Yes.
her separate thought was like, can you clarify how you rotate your cover crops throughout the whole farm annually?
Gotcha. So I mean, rotating our cover crops throughout the whole farm, we don't I would say we don't do too much like that big season cover crop block is the cover crop rotation that we do for obviously from a year to year. Um, but
Yeah, I
in the
guess.
rest of the fields and stuff, we will seed out some things, but um I will readily admit that weeds make a very good cover crop. And so sometimes just allowing the weeds to take over, um, because I'm pretty convinced, and this might come back to bite me in the ass in the future. But I'm pretty convinced that I can knock out pretty much anything I need to with stale seed bedding. And so even if we do have some grass that might be a little bit tougher to knock out, we can do those things with the stale seed bedding. But in general, we will put clovers and things like that in the rest of the blocks when we pull crops out of the field. But we honestly we have a very large CSA program that we do now. There's about 155 people in it. And so we do use most of our space during the year now, and there isn't a lot of places to necessarily put cover crops in after the fact, um, especially if we don't have enough time late into the season. But there are things like when we pull the onions out of the field, we should go back in and we should put down some cover crops like clovers and things. But I also have like a nice 10 row seeder that I use to put cover crops down with, and it works reasonably well, but it still has some issues. And so I don't know. We still get a lot of weed infiltration into a lot of our cover cropping, but in general, I'm not too mad about that because weeds are very good at scavenging, and so they will keep around a lot of different, fertility that you would really like to keep around. So um, I don't know. In general, I think as long as something is growing on the soil surface, I'm pretty happy to let it go. Um, Especially if it's not something that's super problematic like a Canada thistle or something like that. Even though the thistle I have found does it does not react well to the stale seed bedding. That I have found to be pretty effective in lowering the population of thistle in the fields. Not eliminating it yet, hopefully. I mean, that's going to take us, 20 years if if we can even do that. Um, but in general, the stale seed bedding I have found to be effective in lowering thistle populations.
That's, yeah, we had that conversation in the group chat. So about Canada thistle being so aggressive. So
Yeah, no, it's the worst. And honestly, honestly, it's not even really that bad of a weed in the field. It dies pretty readily to stirrupos and things like that. It's just, yeah, it's just a real pain when you have to be like, oh, and I gotta hand weed all this stuff now.
yeah.
Um,
And all different types of weeds like to be they can't handle certain types of pressures or disturbances or something like that. So kind of have to tailor some practices for certain issues, as you've been mentioning, and some you kind of just have to work within whatever you're already working with. Um, I think we don't have any more questions, Chris. Like, do you have anything else or any like follow up, basically like any way for people to contact you that you want
oh,
to share with people?
yeah, if you Google Purdue Student Farm, my contact information is there. I'll actually I can just put it in. So I'll put my email and my phone number. So you're more than welcome to email or call me um, to chat about whatever. Because what I talked about today is still very limited in what we actually do and how we take care of things and what we do like that. So, lots of different stuff that we do or trying or have even tried. So
No, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing what you did. That's awesome. Farm is an ever evolving system, so there's a lot more to learn. Um, if you wouldn't mind stopping your screen share, thank you. Yeah, if anyone has any more questions for Chris, feel free to post it on the chat. Um, seems like we have a lot of like different community garden groups and student um, farm managers on this. So feel free to collaborate together, you guys. Reach out and support each other. It sounds really interesting.
yeah, please
Um,
do.
yeah, right? Um, okay, so we're gonna dive into um, our last little segment. So here we are. And so the highlights we're going to cover, kind of just kick it off to Ellie to talk about this.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Tanvi. So, just for anybody new here on the recording, on the call this month, we are under a new contribution agreement with the NRCS, which has thankfully been able to support us in continuing this program with more staffing coverage. So, we have had a shift in our program deliverables a little bit. So, we will be diving into more technical training for our team on supporting district conservationists and other local field staff in even more of that one-on-one farmer conservation planning process to help with equip, CSP, and a lot of the technical specifications for those conservation practices that are applied on farms. So mulching plans, cover crop plans, low tunnel planning, helping with high tunnels where, it makes sense. So for those DCs that are on the call, stay tuned. We'll be, sharing out even more information now that the shutdown is over and creating more of that, streamlined process for contacting us, but just offering that we're here to go out on site visits to be that initial contact and then help gauge and gather information from those site visits to bring it back to the office. And then we'll be helping to support the conservation desktop work itself on the planning side. And for any growers on the call, feel free to continue to utilize us to come out on site. The new map of our territories is up on our website. And so we have through our program a north and south conservationist, TNV covering the yellow, Megan the green. Myself, I'll be able to get out in the field more in the southwest. And then Michael Ryan is up in the far northeast. He technically works under a similar agreement with Allen County Soil and Water to cover those counties in a similar capacity. And I think that's all I wanted to share on that.
Awesome. So, the next point is just that we had a high tunnel build yesterday, um, at Megan's farm in which her farm is called Unvarnished Farm. And, this is what it looked like before. And she already has a farm high tunnel from last year. Megan, do you want to talk about this?
Sure, I can. That was my property. I should talk about it, right? So, in 2025, I had a group build. It's called a community build with Nifty Hoops. I was able to get this farm, or I'm sorry, get this tunnel on my property through NRCS's EQIP funding program. And we had a really great day last year. We made it a training situation where a lot of district conservationists throughout the state came. You can see them on the right smiling after the tunnel is up. We did get rained on. And it seems like that is going to be a bit of something that happens on my farm when I do high tunnel builds, because yesterday we had a bunch of snow. But this year we built in the snow. We all coalesced on the farm in the morning and got to work right away. We dealt with the cold and the wet, but it wasn't too bad. I think really we spent about 5 or 6 hours building, and the entire thing went up in a day. We've been doing these high tunnel builds throughout the state. So anyone, any growers, or even any district conservationists who know of growers who are going to have who are going to put up tunnels, urban soil health can offer some support in that arena. We can make them an educational event. They're always really fun. I mean, even though it was cold, it was a good time. and and we all got together and learned about each other. So I just wanted to shout out the help that I got both from Tanvi and Ellie, who of course drove a really long time to get there. The professionals at Nifty Hoops, Stephanie and Jared, very positive, great teachers. Then from our Resilient Indiana technical assistance staff, Cole Flat and Will Yoder came down. Braving the snowy rural roads to see us. Then Morgan came from Clark County SWCD, which was really lovely, and Heidi Potter from Clark County Extension supported us. And then Uriah Kleep, who I don't even know, he's from Washington County. He came to help, which was lovely. And this is a picture of us getting the side bracing in, and in order to prepare for the high tunnel build, I planted cover crops in that area after I had done squash the previous year. So I did daikon radish and clover. Of course, you can see those daikon radish are really thriving, pushing up out of the soil. So what I'm going to do next, now that the high tunnel is up, is put a tarp in there, a silage tarp, through also an NRCS program, Pest Management Conservation Practices 595. And that's going to prep and give me that stale seed bed. Then I'm going to utilize wood chips in the pathways and a couple of inches of compost on top. and then plant directly into that as soon as Persephone days are over. But yeah, we had a great day. And obviously we had fun because we even had time to mess around on the ladder. And you'll see our fearless leader there, Ellie, giving the peace sign. Um, she, of course, insisted on a picture. So thank you, Ellie, for capturing the day. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, Nifty Hoops was ready to make that 5 hour drive home, but I insisted
Yeah.
on a photo. But yeah, just wanted to say how much fun I have had, or I had, and I really missed out on all the previous high tunnel builds. Felt too busy for one reason or another to be able to go. So anybody on the call, just highly encourage you to go. They really are fun. You can show up with no or minimal experience and are a very good educational opportunity for, working with clients that are doing this on their own farm to understand like those realities, ask questions of the professionals as you go along, and just have that community build true feel. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo that. I'm a tropical baby, but it actually wasn't, it was great to be out there, moving the body, getting to interact with all these different people. And the high tunnel went up surprisingly fast, given that it was really snowy and slightly cold, but we had a great time. It was so cool to see it go up in that season. And we just learned so much about high tunnel production during these high tunnel events. So, lots of people asking about how and why and when and just all the different information that kind of flooded the time that we spent together. So yeah. Um, the next point is we're offering to purchase cover crop seeds packages through Byron Seeds. If you're interested in ordering, go ahead and take a snapshot of that URL down there and fill out the form on behalf of any ICP partners. And so, yeah, if you could order before December 23rd, that would be great. We have oats and peas, crimson clover, buckwheat, and cereal rye as options. They will come with those instruction cards as you see on the slide right there. And so if you fill that out before December 23rd, we should get them in at the beginning of the year and get them out as soon as possible to you all. So share that with any ICP people that you know of who might be interested in Indiana that want more cover crop seed packets from us. So
Um,
that's yeah.
and I just want to Tanvi, these
Mhm.
cover crop package seeds are um, sized for small scale production. So they are not 5 pound bags, they are 5 ounce bags, and in some instances, even smaller. So they're a great introduction to utilizing cover crops on the small scale for those growers who may not be convinced that it's their best strategy yet. It's a very easy, low, um, you know, just well, it's a simple way to get cover crop seeds on the ground in your areas with little effort. So yeah, sorry, Tammy. You.
Nah, thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, I think most of them cover roughly 100 square foot area, so perfect for experimentation. And that's a really great way for some gardeners, farmers, small scale folks to just kind of experiment with trying out their first set of cover crop seeds. So it's really exciting and they last for a really long time. So get your order forms filled out. On to you, Ellie.
Yeah, so we are, though we have had this shift in doing more one-on-one direct technical assistance, we are still trying to keep education and outreach alive in, that fits with our capacity. So I have submitted a grant application for SARE PDP to develop these trainings even more. So we don't know the result of that yet. So I can't commit that we'll be able to deliver all of these if we don't get that funding coming through, but at least virtual trainings that number one here on the screen, an intro to small farm soil health, and then doing more of a fundamentals of small farm conservation practices, we should be able to deliver for ICP partners. So this is really like looking at what CCSI has done to have consistent annual trainings for ICP staff that just set that baseline and then go in a little bit more depth. So we wanted to still be, here for the local level and provide that consistency of training, information just to get new staff started, staff that have been around for a while, go back to the basics. Um, and then at the very bottom, the hope, the dream is to have more of that 2 day in-person intensive, including both classroom and then also on-farm learning to, put all the pieces together, kind of like the advanced soil health training for Midwestern field staff is done on a cropland scale. And then we with NRCS, with Kara and Kara Bergschneider with NRCS and Kevin Allison with Marion County Soil and Water. This last year, we were able to do or join in to do 8 on-farm trainings to really hone in on specific practices that have, the technical specs and also more of the planning considerations. And so we probably won't be able to do 8 next year, but maybe 4. And that's the hope is that we can still, get out there on farms, see these practices in person, but reach out to us if you have questions and stay tuned.
Mhm.
And then the next thing was more for your farmers. Um, there's a Facebook post on this. It came out through our newsletter as well. Just want to promote the SHOT Fund. So this is created through the Regenerative Agriculture Foundation, I believe, that has funding for farmers for 0% interest bridge loans. So those would be growers that already have been approved for EQIP funding for practices via NRCS, but need some upfront financial support. Those links will be shared when we share these slides after, but I'll put those in the chat as well. I think it's just on a continuous basis, and Indiana is a priority state for them to get funding out the door, and they want to get these dollars out the door as quick as they can. So, encourage you to let your growers know.
Awesome. All right.
Um, Yeah, and so we always end our Urban Updates calls with just a shout out to lots of the great events that are happening in the future. So don't forget that at the end of this week, it's World Soil Day. We'll be having a little celebration online. Um, Traditionally the beginning of December was the EQIP deadline, but because of the government shutdown, it's being pushed a little further back. We are going to be planning an EQIP roadmap virtual call to help growers who are interested in accessing EQIP. So be on the lookout for that. January 7th is our next Urban Updates call. We'll be hosting Jackie Kerr, the interim manager of the DePaul Student Farm. January 7th through 9th is National No-Till Conference in St. Louis. If you can attend, it's a very big event. It's a great opportunity. We have our Another Living Farm series at Let Us Learn in New Albany, down south. That's in Floyd County, Indiana, right across the river from Louisville. What we're going to be doing that day is reskinning a high tunnel at the Floyd County High School student garden. So Let Us Learn is a nonprofit organization that provides no and low cost food to families in the area. And so they are just beginning their season extension adventure, and we are going to be exploring what that means for them and helping other farmers and growers learn more about growing longer into the season and starting earlier in the season, utilizing those season extension techniques and soil health practices. January 23rd, Persephone Days end, so you can start to get some seeds in the ground if you are utilizing those season extension techniques. January 24th is Conservation Cover Cropping, or sorry, Conservation Cover Systems Initiatives, Soil Health 101, which is virtual. This is an excellent tutorial. I recommend it to anyone who is new to soil advocating and ag professionals. Urban Updates on February 4th is going to be featuring Tay Fatke and Tom Manley from Marbleseed. They're going to be talking a lot about working with growers in the region and how Marbleseed has been able to support both growers on the ground and utilizing their power as a nonprofit organization to change um, funding structures in the state. So I'm really excited to host them. February's 12th and 14th is the Ohio Organic Ecological Food and Farming Association's conference. Always a great conference. That's in Newark, Ohio. February 14th, 15th is another Living Farm series. This will be in Seton Harvest Farm in Evansville. They're a great farm, and we're really excited about sharing that opportunity there. And again, the Living Farm series is just an on-farm half-day event that encourages farmers, Indiana conservation professionals, other ag professionals, growers of all sorts to learn more about soil health through the lens of season extension. We're also going to be offering that small farm Soil Health 101 virtually in February, as we talked about before. At the end of February is the Kentucky Organic Association conference, another great conference that'll be in Lexington. And then as we move into spring, if you can believe it, that we're already talking about spring, Purdue Small Farm Conference in Danville, March 3rd through 5th. So of course you can click on that QR code that's right there, or you can go to our website, which is just urbansoilhealth.org for more information. And of course you can reach out to any of us if you have any questions. And if you would like us to come to your farm or plan something educational, please reach out because that's what we're here for. So thanks a lot.
Lots coming up. That's lots to look forward to. So, really happy and thankful for Chris to be on this call and have shared with us about the Purdue Student Farm. If anyone else has any partner shares, please post them on the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and voice that. We're happy to learn about anything else that we can share on behalf of you guys. And then we have